Katie Glueck is a senior political correspondent for McClatchy and joins us right now. Katie, good to see you, and thanks a lot for joining us. All right, so the first question out the top, what are the political risks for the president, especially when it comes to contradicting himself on this issue?
Well, there's potentially very significant political risks because the potential contours of a deal that we've heard coming out that he may have sort of reached with some of these Democratic leaders sort of puts the issue of funding for a border wall, which was, of course, his core campaign promise, sort of pushes that down the road, suggests that he would like to deal with funding for that separately. But this was, that sort of build the wall chant that was so central to his campaign. And so there is certainly some concern from some elements of his conservative base that the emphasis is now on protecting some of these folks who came here undocumented as kids instead of following through on that significant campaign promise.
Let's talk about that. Why is his base so upset?
Well, there is certainly an element and a very vocal element of that base that believes in very hardline immigration policy, and that's certainly what drew them to the president in the first place. We certainly have heard from both the president and the Democrats that any sort of potential agreement would include border security, and that's something that the president's base cares very much about. But beyond that, they do want to see that wall built, and many of them do note, especially some of the more vocal critics, that there was a time when the president suggested that everyone who is undocumented should be a potential candidate for deportation.
So what do you expect to see from a deal between the president and, of course, the Democrats when we talk about DACA?
Well, and of course we have to remember that ultimately anything that could become law would have to make it through a Republican Congress. So we've got to see where Republican leadership would be on this as well. But the outlines again that we've heard involve border security, and they also involve finding a way to protect. There's something like 800,000 of these people who came here as young children, undocumented, to protect them from deportation.
So what would this mean for the future of DACA recipients here in the U.S.?
Well, certainly this is a deal that's being discussed at this very moment. But for now, the president has already given Congress a timeline to work through this, and of course, he and the Democratic leadership are kind of continuing to work out some of the details of a proposal. So, no immediate action, but certainly there's a lot of people who are affected by this policy who would like to know what the future of that looks like. So, a lot of people watching that very closely.
All right. So, final question, and I think it's a big question there. If a deal does go through with Democrats, what do you expect to see from Trump's base?
Well, it certainly depends what that deal looks like. The one thing that is very important to note here is that as much as we have seen, as you noted earlier, people setting their Make America Great Again hats on fire, and we have seen...
Which was a surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, some of his most committed members of his base speaking out.
They're loyal, very loyal.
Exactly. But there's also a lot of them who do want to give him some leeway. They feel that he is under attack from the media nonstop and from the sort of more establishment Republicans and Democrats alike. So there's also a significant part of his base that pretty much no matter what he does, as long as he can ultimately make the case that he's built the wall in some capacity, they're going to be with him.
And aside from his base, what about top Republicans?
Well, certainly Republicans control Congress, right, in both chambers, and so certainly they are going to have to be brought in any sort of deal here. And the president has said that they're on board, so we'll wait to see what sort of those negotiations look like as this plays out. But they don't get the same leeway that the president does from their bases.
All right. Thank you, Katie Glueck. Always good to see you. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.